Copy there. Thank you. Thank you. Is that all right? Okay, great. I'd like to call the order of Monday, May 8th, 2023 Board of Trustees meeting and budget presentation. With the first order of business being a quick presentation on the budget.
Before I start, I just wanted to mention that there was a minor error in the footnotes that went out. Total expenses in the footnotes read $4,716,992. The actual total is $4,725,992. The numbers add up to that. I think it was really just a typo. And the budget total at the bottom shows that number, $4,725,992. So I apologize for that. So the total proposed budget is about 4.7 million. The levy portion is 4.4 million, which represents a 2.18% increase over last year. And it's under the state mandated tax cap. The budget provides funding to maintain our robust collection of library materials and increase programming and outreach in a post-pandemic era where demand has been steadily growing. We've also ensured adequate funding for increasing energy and other operational costs, including popular services that began during the pandemic, such as curbside pickup and enhanced e-materials. Additionally, the budget provides for adequate staffing levels to continue and maintain and provide these services. Taking advantage of the higher interest rate environment has helped to support some of these initiatives. As you can see, that we're projecting interest income to be significantly higher than last year. Yep.
Okay, thanks, Sherry. Go
I
ahead.
had
Question?
one, well, not necessarily a question, but so I looked it up last year because I thought the proposed levy seemed low. And indeed, last year, our increase was 3.25%. So this year we're lower at 2.18. Would it make sense at all to put it like a little blurb in the graphic or star or something that says significantly less than last year? Or is it's already set in stone?
I think it's probably too late to make any changes at this point, right?
Yeah.
But that's a good point. I mean, we could.
Just because we're going into the building project, I'm like, every time we can say, look how we're saving money.
Right.
That would be a good thing, but if it's too late, it's too late.
You can probably social media that or
Yeah.
website or something.
Thank you.
Can you just explain for anyone from the public who's watching the fund balance and how that gets broken up? About the need for reserving some of that for operating costs.
So we do have a total fund balance of 4.1 million, and that's accumulated funds over the past many years. And we've been managing it very carefully. We have to make sure that we set aside about 1.4 million of those funds to fund operations for the first half of the year, from July to approximately October, because we don't start receiving tax revenues until the end of September, October. So basically, the majority of our revenue comes in September or October. We have to make sure that we use those funds carefully throughout the whole year. So we do want to make sure we maintain fund balance adequate to support that.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Questions from board members? Any questions from the public? Questions? Okay, great, thanks. For people to go out and vote on May 16th. We're now going to move to
Ashley McGraw Architects, our guest today. Welcome to the board meeting.
Thank you. Sarah, good.
We can see you.
Okay. So I'm Suzanne Ingrano. I'm a principal with Ashley McGraw. It's so nice to meet all of you in person finally. With me, I have Natalie Redmore, Anna Hyde on the project. We've been here today, meeting with a lot of the staff and learning more about the operations and needs of the library. And so we want to kind of do a quick activity. Natalie's going to give a recap of what we heard today, and then we're going to talk a little bit about next steps and what to expect coming up. But really just nice to meet you all in person. You'll be seeing a lot or hearing more from us soon. So all of you should have a sticky note and hopefully something to write with. And so I'd like you to think back to your favorite library memory. That could be this library, or maybe the library you grew up in, but your favorite memory is something that kind of had a lasting impact on you. What did you experience? Who did you interact with? How did you interact with the space? How might you describe sort of the essence of that experience? If you could just write down a couple of key phrases or words about that experience. And then thinking about kind of what you wrote down, what impact did that interaction, that experience have on your life, and maybe why you're on a trustee and a board member of the library, or that you love coming to the library? What impact has that had on your life? So if I may have 2 or 3 volunteers to share their answer on impact. And we are going to collect the sticky notes so that we capture everybody's, but I've got a couple of volunteers to share.
I'll share.
Great.
So, you want the second one?
Yes.
So the library is a place to get lost in knowledge, and a safe place to explore and learn. So that's had a big impact on me growing up, and so I wanted to give back by being.
Another volunteer?
Well, I chose story time with my daughters here at this library. We always had Miss Polly. Gosh, I love her. Anyhow, that was always a very, very good experience. But even back then, do you remember how cramped the room was, and it was dark and there weren't windows? Yeah. And then the second part was just that the library was a positive influence, both on me growing up and my children, learning, entertainment, socializing, etc.
Yeah. One more.
I mean, I basically said sort of the same thing that Mark did. Just a lifelong love of learning and reading, and led to volunteering to be on board at the library and encourage the kids and kids to come.
So
Yeah, I will say that libraries have changed a lot since I was a kid. Because remember going to the library and not interacting with libraries except to check out the books. And I use academic libraries for my own research and scholarship and work. And I use now reference librarians and the librarians who are helping with the tech and the advances in tech and how we can access so much well beyond this physical building. So I think it's just come such a long way in terms of staffing and services. It's just a different world than when I was a kid.
Absolutely. I mean, I think some of the common themes too are just that what a great resource the library is and of so many different things. It's not just one thing. It's a big, diverse opportunity for everyone. So we're really excited to be able to embark on that with you all and kind of honoring kind of all of those things that you've said. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Natalie to kind of share some of the key takeaways from today. If you want to describe what we did today first.
Yeah, so first, we met with 5 groups today, each for an hour and a half. Those groups being focused around the site and the exterior of the building, the community edition, the children and youth programs, the staff spaces, and then what we're calling the traditional materials, the book stacks, but also like the study rooms, the available computer areas. So just generally the public space. We kind of kicked off each meeting asking who is the community that the Bethlehem Public Library serves. And it was interesting because, you know, we've asked this 5 times today, but each time it kind of expanded and we heard at least something different. We know that there's a variety of age groups, but we learned a lot about who you are in your geographical region and what communities in this area you see coming to the library. And then we also asked, you know, is there any group that you see being underserved or wish you could provide more services to? So we got a lot of great feedback, and then we kind of dived into the concepts that we've shared so far and taking like a zoomed in look at that big floor plan that we originally presented to you and kind of weighed the pros and cons of the plans that we're proposing. We heard a lot of things that are going well in the layout that we're suggesting, but then a decent amount of feedback on, you know, what might not be working well yet and what can be adjusted to better accommodate your needs. Moving forward, we're taking all that into consideration and starting to quantify the things that really put the function into this footprint that we've developed. And, you know, we're going to quantify how many study rooms do you need, or how many you have now versus like, what's your ideal situation? Same with staff spaces, the available floor space for the children's programs, just all of those technical pieces of it. And we had a decent amount of time with each group. So I think we're really excited to move forward and start to digest some of those things a little bit further. That said, we are still looking at accommodating all of those things in the footprint that we've already set. So we're going to be looking at, you know, just making some adjustments, and we're excited to see what direction it's headed in. And we're still on track for the proposed layout that we suggested. Next steps, we are also considering surveying the staff and possibly community to hear some of the feedback that we might not be able to gather in the meetings within the hour and a half. So we're planning for another round of stakeholder meetings at the like early June, and we'll just have some more plans and options to present to the staff again another round. Okay, so kind of building on the next steps. So in this coming month, we'll be digesting all of the information we've gotten. A lot of that was kind of looking at some more visioning, but also and programming, but also we're there's going to be a team here later this week doing some site surveying and assessing the existing conditions. We've kind of looped the rest of our design team into the mix, kind of making sure that we're learning about everything about the building, and so that we can set forward with the new
plan and design with all of the information and how that will turn into reality. So gathering more quantitative data, gathering more qualitative data, really kind of optimizing that for the vision of this new project. And so between now and early June, our goal is to refine that and then develop multiple options for all of the program areas. So looking at, is it size about right? Is it in the right place in terms of adjacencies? But we might not have that answer right away. So the idea is to maybe provide several different options and weigh out, what's good about this one, what needs to be tweaked about this one until we ultimately kind of find the right fit. And we know that that's an iterative process. Also, around that time, we'll have something that's ready to go for the first round of cost estimating. And we have met with our cost estimator for the project, and our strategy is to kind of develop that preliminary refined plan, have them give us some initial thinking on that and targeted points of, we need to look more closely at this area or this area. Also, they can give us then after that initial take specific areas of, we think you could save costs by doing this. And maybe look at this other version of this, something like that, so that there's then between that set and the end of this schematic design set, we'll meet with them several times. We can be working with Jeff and Mark to kind of refine that even more. And that's kind of our moving forward in the next couple of weeks. And yeah, round 2 of the stakeholder meetings, and that's kind of what we're working on right now. If there's any questions for us, but that's kind of an overview.
For the round 2 of the stakeholder meetings, talk to us about the approach that we want to take for that. How expansive.
So round 2 of the program meetings, that will be again with the library staff.
Okay.
Making sure that it functions. So we'll come with the multiple options, look at pros and cons of each of them based on the information for today. We've also been talking with Jeff about, are there opportunities for a wider net? Look again, as Natalie said, looking at a survey, if there's other opportunities to have some sessions, working with you to define what that might be.
So what will the board see the next time?
So around the June, we're kind of dividing the schematic design phase in a couple of chunks. So in about a month, we'll have a refined design that we'll be vetting with staff and kind of getting more feedback on. And that's about the time we need to work exactly out the timing, but around the time we'd like to kind of come back to you and get some feedback on those multiple options. And we won't have the cost back yet at that time, but then the next one will have costs to look at in comparison to the design ideas.
So what I heard you say is we'll see some of the several different options. And then the next time it'll be some of those options with price tag stuff.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much. It was such a long day. I really appreciate being with us.
We had fun, so thank you so
Well,
much.
I appreciate it.
Are you staying in the area or are you going back to
We're
where?
going back.
Yeah,
Safe travels.
Thank you.
drive, a long day and a drive.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody over here has? All of them too. Thank you.
Okay, travel safe, everyone.
Thank you.
So we'll move down now to the next item, which is public participation. Any public participating? Okay,
I don't have anything,
anything from the,
nothing from me.
we're going to the previous meeting minutes on pages 3 through 7. I think it- those, another look at those. Ask for a motion,
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
second. All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. Seeing no opposition, that motion is carried. Financial report.
Okay, so the revenue and expense report through April, continues to show underspending in most categories. With expenses tracking at about 9.5% under budget. However, salaries and benefits are starting to catch up to the budget, and right now we're closer to the budget at about 3% under. I project that we'll probably be, pretty close to the budget by the end of the year. Probably still a little bit under, but not significantly. Other spending will obviously catch up as we approach the end of the fiscal year, especially for library materials. I want to mention that the $1 million CD that we had came due today. And we reinvested it and added a little bit more funds. So we invested 1.1 million in a new 6-month CD at 5.07%.
And that's an increase, right?
That's an increase, yeah. The other CD was in the 4% range. I can't remember exactly what it was. And we looked at our funding and spending for the remainder of the year and into the fall. We want to make sure we have enough of a cushion to support operations. Obviously, we felt we could add a little bit more, but we didn't want to go too crazy. We also have the $500,000 CD that's coming due in June, early June, which we'll probably just take back into our funds. So we have, flexible funds to spend in case we need, it. And actually, I can segue right into the next item, which is a board resolution. We're proposing to transfer $350,000 from our operating fund to the capital reserve fund for the next iteration of costs related to the project, which will help to fund the schematic design costs and other fees that are we're committed to. So setting aside that $350,000 that gets parked in another account, we don't touch it. It just sits there and is used for these expenses. So we want to make sure, we have enough funds, for regular operating costs plus the capital reserve, capital expenditures. So I guess we need a motion for that.
This just incorporates money that was all committed at the last board meeting when we last board meeting before when we agreed to the photographic survey and actually the Ross schematic design. So those have already been voted on. This is just the funding of those.
I make a motion that the Board of Trustees authorize the transfer of $350,000 from the fund balance, the capital reserve fund to cover schematic design and boundary topography utility service survey fees.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? And all those in favor, please raise your hand. In opposition, motion carried. Okay, do you have anything else to say?
I don't, unless anybody has any questions on any of the reports or.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say thanks because I know you and Tanya were on top of it and saw that the interest rates were going up, and it was good to invest a little bit more there and also keep us safe for the fall.
Right, and we have a great partnership with TD Bank. The banker that we deal with is on top of it. She kind of reached out to us before we were even ready to call her, so it's great. And she knew that we were looking to reinvest. So.
I actually just saw something on the warrant. I can't break my record. Right. The postal service. I assume that's because of the what do you call it, highlights, whatever went out.
Footnotes, yeah.
Footnotes. Thank you. Yeah. It was like $1,000 up there. It just flooded through by, and so I assume that was the mailing for the bug.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't have
No problem.
the number. It's okay.
Okay, need a motion. Financial.
I'm ready for a second, whatever.
Second, anyone?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor, somebody raise your hand. Okay, that's for carried. Personnel report,
Okay,
17.
it's a relatively unexciting personnel report this month. I'm in a while. The only board action I'm requesting is a Hawk of the Village to backfill a part-time library clerk for 15.67 hours a week at $14.45 an hour.
Okay, need a motion?
I do, just a part-time.
So moved. I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, any discussion first, all those in favor, want to raise their hand, this one's carried. Okay, great. Moving to the director's report.
Okay, so I'm just going to talk briefly because we had such a deep discussion last month about plaza redesign. Basically, well, I'm not going to talk about it here. I have a whole thing later on the agenda. I'll shut up about that. There's some plaza redesign. Yeah. So it's been quieter, busy again, continuing to be increasingly busy in person. I'll show you the numbers later. That I like it when the numbers back up my impression that we continue since last November, this chugging increase in year-over-year increases. Our circulation is kind of leveling out. We're still increasing a little bit, but the wild increases in circulation that we experienced in 2022 and the end of 2021, we are seeing the same level of increases in people in the building. So all of the statistics that have to do with people in the building, those numbers are increasing. That's just a return to some sort of level of normalcy. Again, during the pandemic, we worried that maybe the use patterns wouldn't snap back to being what they were, given that we're working on a building. A lot of the building assumptions are based on pre-pandemic use patterns, but they're being borne up now by post-pandemic use patterns of how people are using the building. So I just, overall, it's nice to see, it's just nice for me to see that the continuing return to the building, use of the building in traditional and non-traditional ways. Just circulation came back very quickly. People were getting their books, they were reading. That's great, but this is all of those other and occasional uses of the library. So that's wonderful. The new copiers installed, and I know we had a big discussion a while ago about the new copiers. It's actually a pretty big service impact where faxing is now free for the public as long as it's domestic. Photocopying is 10 cents a page, just as it always has been. But because the long distance calling is so close to free, this just makes faxing so much easier. So now people don't have to buy a fax card, and people don't have credit cards. They can just come in and fax on the photocopier. So it's nice to see it. And scanning, we don't have to charge for scanning. The machine exists. You just come in, use the thing to scan. It's quite nice. We've been just want to mention, because we talked about proctoring a couple of times, we're seeing a continued increase. Particularly like this real estate university proctoring exams. Lots of this is coming from outside of Bethlehem School District, just something to note. But that's another in-person use of the library that continues to increase when now more exams are being proctored in the library. So I have to give a full shout out to the staff at Upper Hudson who arranged the library expedition. Total library expedition visits across Upper Hudson are over 8,000 now. Here in the library, we've had 413 expeditioners of all ages coming into our library. So we have a pretty good share. We're about the third in the whole Upper Hudson library system so far. So that's nice. Just a lot of work on the staff part, the staff at Upper Hudson, and also the staff here in the library to make sure that expedition works. It's just a ton of work, but so well received. And I know people are pursuing those gold and platinum cards for the expeditioner. So that's coming out. We had a good meeting with one of our public services librarians, met with one of the special ed coordinators at the school. So we're going to be doing some outreach to the extended summer year program. The schools, we're going to focus on K through 5, or because after 5th grade, they tend to be more focused on some other life skills and pre-job readiness skills. But we're going to have our librarian push into those classrooms over the summer. So we're excited. That's a new connection for us. So we were happy to see about that. Yeah.
The studio makerspace.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had told me about this already, so I'm just going to ask again. The Cricut machine, we were waiting for like an upgrade or a more digitized version. Is that still happening? Is it there?
It's not there.
Okay.
But it's coming there. We're just trying to make sure that we know as a staff how to use it. So, because it's the support of it that we're concerned about. It's a lot of hand holding with that machine. So that's, if there's the holdup with that, is the amount that we have to support. So that's where we are right now.
Stronger, a steep learning curve.
It's a steep learning curve. I think people, if you only made it available to people who already know how to use a Cricut, fine, but that's not the point, and the librarian's trained on.
Yeah, what is, what's it?
So a Cricut is it's like a machine you can use,
The cipher, the
Shapes or
material.
like vinyl stickers you can put on, if you wanted to have a wrap for your laptop or
Okay.
something like that. And it's great, it's really cool. You can design them electronically and then basically print that stuff out on sheets, and whether it's in paper or vinyl or plastic.
Cakes.
Yeah, you can do cake toppers. So there's a lot it can do, but like everything that can do a lot, there's a lot to know. Thank you, there's a lot to know. So that's where we are.
Teachers used.
Thank you. Thank you for the reminder.
I did have a couple patrons ask about it, that's what I was wondering.
Lots of programs. I'm not going to go through it. I just like the idea of Craftapalooza. Basically, we always have small amounts of leftover crafts, and we just did like a huge blowout. And the kids during the break weekend, the kids came out and did it. So it's wonderful. Lots of spring break week programs. We have Brew Shack here. Just lots of good traditional break week busyness that starts to feel pre-pandemic to me, so it's awful. So that's the big takeaway from that. And Pause to Read continues. I don't know if we've really talked about that here at the board, but the Pause to Read where the kids read to the therapy dogs, super popular, big numbers in the children's room. The dogs come in. I mean, who's not happy to have super friendly dogs? So that's wonderful. The continued partnership with the Bethlehem Historical Association. Those again, 95, like the attendance continues to be really high for those events, and we've got a good way of filming them now. So when that program, that speaker series picks back up in the fall, we're ready to go and having it for people who come in. Lots of people clearly want to come, but also people want to watch it. We've heard about people who've watched it remotely. Very happy to be able to access those programs. So one of the benefits of the pandemic was how we learned to do hybrid programs, and that doesn't stop. So it's more work, but it's good. So there's that. And then we're talking just a little bit again, all together now is our focus, the focus on unity this summer for our summer reading program. We've got Beth is working with the Bethlehem Police Department for the Community Helpers Program in August. And Bethlehem Police Department will be sending a staff member to talk to the kids about their job and answer questions. So that's all good stuff. We've got the lineup for Evening on the Green. I know everybody likes to have that early. Here you go. In our minutes is where, in our board packet is where that is. These are the dates and times for the Evening on the Green. So we're excited to have that going. May 20th, not this weekend, but the following weekend, the Friends Book Sale fundraiser is coming. That'll be 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. here on the plaza. Very well attended, continues to build each year. We'll have some music. We'll have some theme music here. So to sort of set the ambience for people, make it a little bit more of a festival. That's exciting. So it's coming. And then we're doing lots of stuff. So read all about that. All this stuff, sorry. It's a good library of things added last month. New American Girl dolls, more diverse selection of American Girl dolls, and new board games, new some replacement of some metal detectors. Our venerable switches, which have done their bit for King and Country, we've added some more of those so they can they'll last. New bird kits and a
I have a question. What is a bird?
So these are like a bird watching kit. So it's got a little bird identification book, comes with a little backpack for kids. They've got a pair of binoculars. So if the family wants to go out, it doesn't come with a bird, but it could. Library of pets. Seems fraught with peril, but
exactly.
So and then we'll talk about this returning to business. Interesting that one of the things that we're seeing increasing is the demand for our cell phone Wi-Fi hotspots. That I thought was more demand for when we were closed, but in fact, the demand is picking up now to the point where we're having trouble keeping up with the demand for requests. So we'll talk about that later as well. And then we'll talk about notary training later on.
Oh, later on.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't want to preempt your end.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So then just to not just to beat a dead horse here. So again, overall circulation increase April over April, a 1.2% increase in circulation. Great. It's, it's up. We like to see that. It's getting busier. But again, these numbers begin to look like what I think regular circulation numbers look like. But down here, we're seeing, door count increases 27%. 17,000 people came through the door rather than 13,000. There's still a good way to go. A normal month for us pre-pandemic was well above 20, 22, 23, 25, topping 30 on a busy month. So we're still a long way to go before we're all the way back to normal for door count. But those numbers, really big increases there. Computer signups, again, just people being in the building, up 30%. Museum pass use, which is great. And then wireless use. Again, this is just a good overall judge of how many people are in our physical locations. So that's the story about this month's statistics, just those continuing physical place numbers. I'm excited for this summer. It looks like maybe the first time we're going to have like a real regular summer reading program with all the programs and people being here. I'm excited about that.
So I did have a question about circulation. I'm not sure if now is the time to talk about it or new businesses. So the board
Sure.
can let me know. I'm wondering about automatic renewals.
Yep.
When we first did that, I think it was so that we could kind of avoid paying a fine if
Sure.
you had a book out that wasn't on hold, they just automatically renew it. But now that we have no fines, the automatic renewals seem somewhat gratuitous. And I'm just wondering, is it necessary to have those anymore?
It's a good question and one that we've asked, but it's not a decision that's up to our library individually. So that is an Upper Hudson wide setting, the automatic renewals. We don't have a mechanism to do that. That's for Bethlehem books, Bethlehem items, Bethlehem patrons. It had to be done system-wide. So yes, as more and more libraries are fine-free, do you need fine-free and automatic renewals? I think the need for that is less, but for the libraries that continue to have fines, it's a way for them to provide for the service, some sort of decrease in that. And there's like a Colony still charges fines. That's a big library.
So that answers the question. I
Sorry.
didn't realize it was a UHLS decision, so.
I have a question, is it generated by computer, right? There's no staff? Like the automatic renewals are just generated?
Correct.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, I don't like them to all the time. But so I can see the question, but I know I get notice that things are getting renewed, and it reminds me that I start reading that thing, because it'll be eventually, I will stop getting the auto renewal and get the.
But you would
Bring it
still
back.
get the notice that the book is due though.
Right.
Yeah,
In 2 days, that one,
Correct.
the way we used to do it, yeah.
And that's why we're watching those return numbers when I come back with those numbers about what's our return rate, what's the average return date is that changing that on-time return? Is it changing the availability of the items in the building? That's my concern, is that with auto renewals and fines, that was one of our big questions as we talked about it, is are we going to make the availability of items in the building, are they going to be less available? Well, the thing is that the most popular items are on request and therefore aren't eligible for automatic renewal. So they are fine free. So if someone keeps them overdue, it won't auto renew. If somebody wants the book, it won't auto renew, but there's not a fine. So our question was, if there's no fines on those super popular items, will that impact the availability of items in the collection? It doesn't appear to. So we're going to watch through the summer. We'll watch through the summer, and if we need to retool how many copies of popular items that we have to get, that's what we're watching that to make sure that the availability of the items are what we've been able to offer. So,
Okay, well, our family's teeny tiny experience
Yeah.
with this is the young adult, really popular books. there's quite a long wait.
Yes, okay, so
Yeah.
note taken,
Yeah.
all right. Get more stuff. You got it. So we watched that whole show, maybe that we adjust from where we were traditionally to say, oh, for every 3 requests that we have, let's make sure we have a copy. Maybe we need to dial that down, pop over a little.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions for Jeff?
We notice at this point whether people are giving any feedback about the expanded access to other library systems availability, and I've had
Overdrive?
people say to me that they like that, but I'm not sure.
Nice. So, so we actually just had a report. So this is about the overdrive, and I'm going to say it here because it's important for us to talk about that the Mohawk Library, Mohawk Valley Library System, Southern Adirondack Library System, and the Mid-Hudson Library System, which are the 3 library systems that surround us. Those collections are available to our patrons as long as they're not on hold or checked out. Just an available item, item in any of those collections. Our patrons are allowed to borrow those. So the problem is that it's hard to get those other libraries set up in the app. And I think it's the friction is purposeful, like it's on purpose, right? So it's when we're teaching people how to hook themselves up to those other libraries, we have to do it. It's by hand a little bit. Some people figure it out, but I needed help. I mean, I went to the info desk. I said, "You guys got to help me." It's complicated. So I know our patrons are using it because I've seen the statistics more from Mid-Hudson than from those other 2 newer library systems because our relationship with Mid-Hudson has been longer. So our patrons, we have patrons that know about this. I mean, I borrowed an audiobook from Sal, so I know it works. I think it's still in its infancy. I think they maybe as a system doing a better job. Their libraries and their system they're telling their people about it, so they're coming and using our. But it's a completely new thing for them, whereas our patrons have had another system to use for a while. So. But it's a good.
I mean, I set it up, but it was a little challenging.
It's challenging, right?
Okay, any other questions for Jeff? All right, thanks. Go to UHLS report.
Well, it's that time of year to look at award applications, so we have a meeting on Wednesday to look at those. And then budget wise, not a lot of great news, kind of flat funding from last year, 99.6 million for library aid, and construction aid is also flat at 34. So. All right. But other than that, I think have people mostly responded about the annual celebration? And
Yes, except for a couple people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And
When's the deadline? When's the deadline on that? Because I'm one of the couple.
25th.
Okay.
And the training starts tomorrow, maybe, about the collection, or is that still going on?
I'm not
I
really
think-
sure.
I thought it was 6:30 tomorrow, I think.
The first session is virtual. It's happening. So
Yeah.
they're
Because there's something at 5 and something at 6.
for here. Yeah, for us, that's us. It's at 6:30. It's a lot. I know.
Yeah, dinner between 6 and 6:30 tomorrow. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, great. New business. Library card policy first read.
The library card policy is in the board packet for your perusal. I think there's some good changes, a simplification of language. It brings us more into congruence with the work that Upper Hudson has been doing with the other member libraries as far as what is acceptable photo ID and proof of residence. So that's the chart that you're seeing. It's the big part of this is the chart. And then back to that underlying tenet that we think about with our policies is who's being excluded. That's one of the things that we talk about when we look at policies. There is some reworking of non-resident, short-term, borrowers without permanent addresses. I bring your attention to some of those things just to try to be less unaccommodating of folks whose life situations are different than traditional situations. Is that a good way to say that? Just a way to make sure that we are accommodating, and also we're making the policy match our practice. Our clever folks in the circulation department have worked out ways and ways to provide library cards and library card services to people in lots of different situations. And what we're doing is codifying those processes here in the library. So.
And the attorney, I believe, provided some of the language also, so this was also reviewed by her.
Okay, we'll just take a look at that and we'll vote on it next week.
There's a-
Next meeting.
Oh, while we're here, so when we put these policies in, what we're doing, would you rather see a clear copy, or do you want to see the markup copy, or yes? Both. So, all right, so you got both in there right now. Unless it's a major rewrite, we'll put those in.
Okay, patron conduct policy, first reading.
So this one is a major rewrite. So this is a major rewriting of the patron conduct policy. An attempt to make it more positive. I mean, Charmaine, if you want to take over, I'm happy to talk, or I'm happy to have you talk. But it's a major rewrite of this policy to focus more on positive, bring the important parts up, a little less of the don't park your bike in the hallway, and a little bit more of don't threaten, harass, or abuse other staff or staff or other patrons. So bringing the more important pieces of that up to the top of this policy, and then providing for a separate document that's a little bit about the nitty gritty about the
So if people actually wanted to see this, so this is a rewrite, and then we have the old one. The committee started looking at, so we have a track change copy of the old one. And then Jeff and I started talking, I'm like, it can be better. So this contains everything in the old policy, but again, it says like must refrain as opposed to don't do this. So it's just a little bit of a tweaking. And then, as Jeff said, taking out the stuff like don't skateboard in the hallway. Like there were so many small scale regulations, and that's now covered under a clause that says must abide by all posted regulations and policies. So the smallest stuff can be posted on the wall or somewhere. And so that gets subsumed by the clause in here. And then it's just like wordsmithing, but it's I won't say it's the same policy, but it's close. It covers everything in that previous version. Speaking the language, rewriting some of the material in terms of just behaviors that are the most concerning to address.
and does spell out what we do, I think, better than the last policy. It spells out a little bit more. What's the response? What's the response from the library staff? What would be the eventual response from the trustees about for folks who are violating this policy? What does that actually look like when that happens?
So I don't know if there's a track changed copy of the. There is no real track changed copy of this one because it's sort of new. But if you want to see the original version the committee was working off of and the track changes there, I think we can put that up if anyone wants to see that versus just working off the rewrite. So I don't know if people have what they want to do.
We can send that out. I just didn't want to come up everybody's inbox. I think it's a good rewrite. It's more positive. I mean, I talk about violating the policy, but I think it's much more positive.
I think we just thought we can do better than this. Even trying to do a track change rewrite of the existing policy, like there's something we can do differently here. Okay, so what you'll see is a track change version of a different policy.
Okay, people should take a look at that for voting next meeting. Notary service update.
Okay, so now I'm back to that thing I talked about briefly in my monthly report. So we sent 10 of our staff people trying to cover as much of the schedule. We had more than 10 people were willing, thanks to those folks. But I sent 10 people who seemed to cover more of the evening and weekend schedule to try to provide maximum as much coverage if we were to go forward with this. Learned some interesting stuff. I think one of the things that we have right now is the one person who's currently providing notary services is not interested in continuing that without insurance and some of the other protections in place that we have for that we have proposed in a sort of larger, what would need to happen for us to offer this service. I think that was backed up by the training class that was brought very much into clarity in the training class of what those protections for someone who's providing notary services on behalf of the library there's you need to have the insurance, and there needs to be some of the other policy stuff in place for that to happen. So our person is not interested in going forward with that, you know, without having those other folks, some more people, doing that and putting those, that larger stuff in place. So we need to decide that because their certification's ending at the end of June. So it's we're kind of coming up on a hard deadline on whether we can continue to offer this service or not. So that makes sense.
Did we not already have a conversation about this where we said we would do it?
That's exactly what I was thinking. I thought we already committed we were gonna.
What we committed to was my ability to send staff to the training class, and because I didn't want to miss the opportunity to have Upper Hudson pay for people to become certified notaries. The insurance policy, we didn't,
I think we've talked about.
we talked about this a lot, but we
haven't
haven't said that we're doing that.
approved it.
Right, so we need to, we want to continue our financial service, we got to put those things in place.
We have an estimate? I
104
really think we thought we talked
Yeah.
about this already.
We definitely did.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's no motion on the agenda to approve that tonight. Or. So you're giving a report right now, but in terms of like a
Correct.
board action, could the board tonight vote? Or do you need to put it on for next month?
I think it needs to be on for next month because there's, I mean, we could put the insurance, you could tell me that we'll provide insurance, $140 per note. There is no economy of scale on that, and that's for $100,000 in coverage for each person who's acting as a. The other pieces that our lawyer came back and said need to be put in place are about the indemnification beyond the insurance, the discussions about time off from the library to testify if necessary. So all of those things, those are policies that need to be put in place, which we could do quickly. We can move relatively fast, but there's a bunch to that we haven't talked about. So it's not as simple as saying, yeah, we'll get insurance. That's great. That's necessary, but not sufficient.
Okay, so then I think I propose that next month we delve into whatever else it is we need to know to make the decision one way or another. Because it seems like we've spoken about it a few times. There might be a reason maybe we shouldn't do it, is that's the kind of sense I'm getting from you, but maybe not. So
I think the legal ramifications of providing notary services are greater than a lot of people imagine they are, and that was brought into clarity in the class. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
what seems to be like, oh, no big deal, sure, we'll do this, is not the case. That there's you know, I had one person who took the class who said, you know, I'm not interested in continuing, even though they went to the class to be certified. Once they found out what was involved, they were not interested in continuing. So we can't mandatory people to do this, is something that we can offer to people, given that we put things in place. So what I'm hearing is, yes, this is something we want to do. Then by next month, I can have a proposal in front of you that puts all of those things in place. But we haven't ever made the decision to go forward and make all those necessary changes. In order to
could we
provide
maybe
this.
get an email with the cons?
Yep,
Because I think we all know what the pros are.
As I recall, the two issues were paying for the amount of people. So you had initially suggested a certain amount, and that was a lot of money. So we requested a lesser amount with the most coverage.
Yep.
And then the other issue was like how much insurance, because
Yes.
the levels of coverage varied in price and for each person. So you're saying the top level of coverage is.
well, that's what our lawyer
Yeah.
recommended, was the top level of coverage. But beyond the coverage, there's an indemnification that goes beyond that, where the library says, not the individual for errors and omissions, the library is accepting the liability of that if it goes beyond the insurance.
Does that fall under our umbrella?
I,
Well, perhaps for next month, come with additional information and discussion like that. And then what I'd like to know is from you as the directors, if given what you have learned, do you still want to provide those services? So that would be clear. I'm hearing some stuff, like I'm not sure what I'm hearing, but it's given everything that you've learned in the process, is this a service the library? I get this, the value of it and all the rest, but do you want to provide that here? Was the first question, and you can just tell us yes or no, or you can say yes or no, and we can say, well, we still think you should do it, so you'll have the numbers to back it up.
Yep.
And then there may be some things that can be done more quickly, like voting on, let's say, and the board says, yes, we'll do it. Then the amount for the insurance, we can vote on that, blah, blah, blah. But if there's a policy involved,
Right.
that may have to be in the works. So, what can be voted on next
Yep.
month? You can just flat out vote, whether it's amount or authorization. And then there may be a piece that, I just know the policy committee is kind of working already on stuff, and so I'm not gonna commit to a policy that's gonna be, but, there might be other parts that have to be in the works. Backing up a little bit beyond next month. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, and to second Charmaine's question, I know that you work very hard not to give us your personal opinions on things. I think
This is more complicated, I'll tell you right,
You're asking your. personal
I'll tell you
opinion.
right now. It's a great service that the public loves, that is a huge pain and is potentially not worth it. And I think the more people learn about what is actually involved when someone is acting as an employee of the Department of State, not necessarily only they're acting as an agent of the Department of State, I think this is something that can seem like it's not that big a deal, but actually can be a really big deal. One of the things they learned in the class was that more often notaries are being included in legal action more than in the past. So that's the concept where you say, oh, we're gonna pay people time to go testify. That can seem like a minor cost until it's not, and then it becomes a major cost, right? So I think there's a lot of organizations that are providing this that maybe aren't fully understanding, even some of our fellow libraries that aren't fully understanding the gravity of the service that they're offering. It seems like a simple thing, it is in fact not.
So the training was worth it, just not the way that we necessarily anticipated.
But that said, I think it's still a valuable service. So if
It is also available.
I understand.
So,
Well, I guess have the information to back it up and then reflect for a month and just.
Yeah.
Would be really helpful for me to do. So
Exactly.
it's like, you could say, I'm recommending the library terminate all of our services, and this is why, or thought about it, I think we should, and this is what it entails.
You got
That would be helpful.
Right.
I don't know, for the board, but at least for me, it's like,
Yeah.
as a director saying, we should go forward, or we should stop this and stop. And then the board can have this discussion and decide.
Or we should offer it on on an off hours when we can staff it.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have some staff people who are very excited to offer the service, even having been through the training. So I think it's just, if we can do our job, put the protections in place, understand that it's fairly unlikely, but understand the organizational commitment for the insurance and the indemnification, then I don't see any reason why we wouldn't offer the service.
Right.
There you go.
Okay, lawnmower, page 31.
Hey,
This should be more straightforward.
I hope so. Our excellent maintenance staff need a new walk behind lawnmower because the old one that has lasted for 20 years is really dying. It has been lovingly cared for and it is time for it to go. So
Are we naming the library?
this one's not exciting. Maybe I'll put, they really, I tried to make them put googly eyes on stuff and they hate it. They're just not doing it. They don't tell me no. They told me no. So this is over my authorization limit at $65.99, but we've investigated other similar items and we think this is the one to go with. And so I'd like your authorization to contract with T-Mobile to purchase this walk behind one.
Is it gas powered?
It is, unfortunately.
I'm just asking.
No, I love our smaller lawnmower is electric. There are zero turning radius electric lawnmowers, which I have a propensity to be inclined towards. I don't think this sort of commercial level of walk behind mower, they're not there yet. Maybe in a couple of years they will be, but yeah, it is unfortunate.
Make a motion to let that buy a lawnmower.
All those in favor, try to raise your hand. Okay. Motion carries. Wi-Fi hotspots.
Wi-Fi hotspots, so I talked about in my director's report, and then asked Phil to put together a proposal to add 20 more hotspots. Now, of course, the devices themselves are free, isn't it? Yes, I'm sorry, this one's sideways stuff. Okay, yeah, like always, but things are free. It's that is not an issue, but they are $28.70 a month, right? So each month that's another $574. And that would, about $7,000 a year to provide 20 more. We currently have 30 of these. They're heavily in demand from the public, and it's a premium service. It's expensive.
Is it already included in the budget?
This is not included. This would blow the telecommunications line right out. Blow that budget right out of the water. But
Do you have issues getting them back?
No, not that we've realized, because we can shut them off. So we can simply brick the item, and usually once we brick that, it comes back within a day or two.
So that and the Chromebooks are two things that we can turn off remotely. And what's a Chromebook? Like a Chromebook, you turn it off, it's nothing. It's weird, flat.
And you currently have 30.
We have 30 right now, and we're asking for 20 more. With this understanding that it's an expensive and premium service, but I think this number would, by the numbers, fill the demand. Phil? Awesome, yes?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, so this is the number that sort of our use would recommend us having. But it's expensive and over the amount that I'm authorized to.
But can help, or is it just we need to?
I think anything that we do to supplement the existing hotspots will help alleviate the pressure on the demand that we see on those. As soon as these items are coming back, we're seeing them go right back out.
Thank you.
I would guess there might be an uptick when school ends, because people are losing their internet. Some people, kids in particular, are losing internet access.
Unfortunately, probably at the same time, it's the summer vacation season, so then people want to take them away from them.
I'll make a motion to approve purchasing 20 new more.
I'll second it.
Purchasing and paying.
Yeah,
for
right,
it.
yeah.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, seeing opposition, thank you, Carrie.
Just as a quick mention, thanks to Michelle, I'm just gonna mention this, we are investigating so one of the services that people have asked us for is there an equivalent device? These are domestic only. One of the services that people might want in our community is a device that you could take outside the country. What would that cost be? Was investigating that right now. And there's enough of our community that travels internationally that we a valuable service, but I don't have an answer for you yet. I was hoping, but we'll get that answer out to this as soon as I can.
Okay, any other new business?
We doing the parade?
Yeah,
Oh, that's gotta be coming up
I
pretty
know.
soon.
yeah, Memorial Day.
What's the theme?
The Memorial Day parade?
Yeah.
I don't, the Memorial Day parade.
Summer reading all
Oh, there you go, it's all together.
It's a giveaway.
Yeah, what's the giveaway, Chris?
It's a bit of everything we have laying around.
There you go. Hopefully, pencils.
Carl and I walked behind the overflow last year.
It's, I feel like everyone is.
But I can't do it this year, but it was a lot of fun.
That's great.
If you're free and it's a lot of fun.
It's very hot last
Yeah, we
year.
got pencils and hand sanitizer and magnetic clips, and Chris and I are gonna meet hopefully this week to talk about something different for the kids. We're gonna give out coupons for books and.
It was a lot of fun.
Think about towing with my truck and not that van. Might just pull the floor with my truck.
So you'll put that out to the board?
Yeah.
Good times, I mean.
You got it.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't get a postcard anymore, so that postcard is, I participate, let me just show up.
Yeah.
No one's gonna tell them. Show up.
Okay, any other new business? Okay, moving to old business, plaza entry.
Okay, I don't have anything to put in front of you, but right now, just last month, right after our board meeting, I had an email from associate architect at the Office of Facilities Planning that talking about the proposal to replace the surface of the bricks, that is not a project that requires a building permit for us, and therefore is not subject to Office of Facilities Planning review, which is nice. I've contacted Mark Dorsey from the town of Bethlehem to try to sign on to their sidewalk contract. It's just a big sidewalk. To see if we can have a pre-negotiated price for that. Which I will let you know as soon as I hear back from him, but their bids are coming back for that. Sidewalk right now. If I don't get a satisfactory answer on that this week, then I will work with Keplinger Freeman, who's the landscape architect that's affiliated with our architect, to try to get them to tell me what would exactly be the specifications of the kind of contract I need, so I can get a bid document put together. We'll get that out into the spotlight and sent to other local companies. So my preference is to work on the town's pre-bid, already structured sidewalk contract, which we are allowed to do as another municipality. Talk to Mark, he seemed very amenable. They're just waiting for those bids to come back. So I think that's my preference. That's the easiest way to move forward and make sure we get a good product. If not, we'll get that bid document together and they'll have that in the ground before the snow flies.
And potentially less expensive?
Yes, again, because it's a pre-bid contract, and we don't have to pay an architect to design a bid document for us because that bid is already there. Just because we had such a discussion about office and facilities planning, and some folks were asking, what would require that? Drainage issues, drainage structures underneath, changing the grade, anything that impacts ADA parking. And then curb cuts are a huge big deal. I understand what a big deal curb cuts are, but anytime you cut a curb, takes a lot of discussion with local fire departments and town highway.
So do we know that the drainage system doesn't have to be changed if you replace the bricks with concrete?
We're not, I would know that if we were replacing the bricks with concrete, we are not changing the drainage under.
So we don't have to?
No.
Okay, got it.
No, and that was what just changing the surface structure of a walkway doesn't require a building permit under their rules.
Right, I understand that. So I'm saying, but if you take the bricks out and you put the concrete on top, does concrete require different drainage structure than the bricks? That's what.
I don't know the answer to that question. It wouldn't happen as part of this project. It would be replacing the surface. There's no building permit required for that, and therefore no review of that project. So
Yeah, so
if it was required, then it would have to go to them.
Right, no, I understand that part of it, but I'm just saying, so, okay, so we don't need, because we're not changing the drainage structure. The question is, if you change the,
Surface.
the material.
Yeah.
By pouring concrete instead of bricks, does the concrete require a different drainage structure than the brick? Does that make sense?
It does, but so all I can say is that our architect from the associate architect from the Office of Facility Planning said changing the surface does not require a review. So therefore,
Okay.
if it required it, if by code there was a different drainage structure underneath the cement, it would require a review.
So my concern is like, you put the concrete down, then it's a whole problem because the inadequate, something happened.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
we shouldn't, could have known.
and we could, right, and so we could, I mean,
Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like.
I understand what you're saying. So we could send this all, we could do a project where we send it to a landscape architect. I mean, what we're doing is the quick version of replacing that surface because of the icing on the plaza. We could hire a landscape architect and get you a more thorough and better vetted answer for all of that stuff. I will try in the meantime to get you an answer, but I think if the surface was so different that it required different drainage structures, then it would not be an allowable project.
I wonder if the district's director,
I'll ask.
I'd call Ms. Haskell.
That's where we are.
Okay, policy committee update, drug and alcohol policy.
So it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same as it was last month. To the. An alcohol-free workplace.
Was presented on the.
I make a motion to accept the revised drug and alcohol pre-workplace policy as presented at last month's board meeting.
I second.
Any further discussion?
As always, thank you to the policy committee.
All those in favor, please signify by saying yes. That carries.
Mark, can I just say, since we're talking about policies,
Sure.
it's not on the agenda, but can we take a quick update on naming rights?
Yeah.
Um,
That's a.
So, committee meeting, we understand that at the last meeting, the trustees said, go forward with the draft. So as opposed to having the whole committee try to construct a version of that, Jeff and I are gonna start meeting in, I think like in a week, I don't know when, to start taking a crack at it so that we can kind of flush out some of it, and then the committee will go. We may not make that like August deadline, but we just want to let you, we were working on it, but with the bond project and other meetings and the trainings and things. We are making movement on it, but I did want to commit to end of summer. Because we have to come up with something, it may take a couple of meetings, the committee then has to look at it and. But we are making progress, but it may not be. End of summer. Thank you.
Negotiations update, training update on negotiations.
I don't think we've heard anything
No.
from the union.
Okay.
I think that,
We have an executive
yeah,
session.
we'll discuss later.
Okay, other old business, any other business? Any future business? Any public participation? Okay, need a motion for executive session.
I will tell you exactly what you need to say. Need an executive session for the purposes to discuss contract negotiations pursuant to Article 14, Civil Service.
So moved. Second, anyone in favor? Okay. That motion's carried, so we'll move into executive session. Thank you, everyone.
All right.